Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, the only show on Indian television where you, the MSME, get center stage to voice your opinions and thoughts. This is ET Now's special daily initiative to give MSMEs and entrepreneurs the opportunity to be front and center on every industry and area that matters to you. Tonight, on Direct Connect, a panel of experts answering your questions. Later on the show, we'll feature two companies on Small Giants tonight, Cloudrino and Greensole. Vishal, Sunil, thank you both very much for being with us here tonight. Our first question tonight is coming to us from the line of Ashok Ahuja. Go ahead, Ashok.
I run a company called Tech Mali. Tech Mali is into automatic watering of gardens and farms, urban gardens and rural farms. So we have designed this device ourselves, and the challenge we are facing today in an MSME environment is that we have very keen intention to grow big, all right? But the major challenge that we are facing is that when the new recruits join us, they are very enthusiastic about the concept, and then we train them, and then we try to retain them by giving them incentives also. But the draw that they have from the larger corporates is pretty steep. And that becomes a big challenge for us to, it's a mental block. So I want the experts to give us some advice on how we can, what mechanisms we can adapt to retain.
Vishal, you're no stranger to this question. We get this question very often here on the Leaders of Tomorrow, where small companies say, we're not able to offer the kind of exciting roles that a large company can offer. We're not able to offer the salaries that a large company can offer. What's your suggestion to Ashok?
Okay, there are 2 points. One is, of course, creating a flexi work environment where there are flexible timings, work from home options, or looking at giving the kind of benefits which could be offered, like ESOPs or other things, to the employees. The second part is a very new initiative recently taken up by Government of India, is where they have funded the ITIs, the Industrial Training Institutes, for public-private partnership. So, maybe he can approach one of the local ITIs in his area, because I understand he is located in a remote area and ITIs are present in remote areas. So, in that remote area, if he approaches an ITI, he can tie up with them where he can actually help the ITI to create a skill-based program where a lot of blue-collar labor is required. Sure. So they do this training for him, and he can have continuous supply of workforce batch after batch which gets trained in that ITI. By doing this, he not only solves his own problem, but also problems of surrounding industry in that particular remote area. So it's a wonderful initiative. Not many people are aware. It's good that Ashok has asked this question, so I think now a lot of people would know.
All right.
See, the issue of attrition is very common. This is because of the scarcity of resources in the marketplace. So one need to address this primarily with the training institutes like ITIs and all. The other thing is also to create a kind of a retention model which is very specific to industry, by creating those HR friendly policies and working environment to kind of motivate those youngsters to participate in the growth, as well as they should feel a part of a cultural upbringing in the organization rather than just an employee kind of a person. So retention ideally need to get tackled with the policies which are more of HR friendly policies.
Okay, so Ashok, the response to your query in one of the suggestions, and we do have our experts saying this quite often on our show, don't compete in terms of the salaries against larger companies. That's not something that you can possibly take on, but do look at the policies that you have in place and also possibly the hiring that you're doing right now. Thanks very much for calling in with that. Our next query is coming to us from Nishit Chaudhary. Nishit says they're in the packaging industry, focusing on continuous enhancement in productivity, enhancement of productivity and quality. Nishit's written in to us on our Facebook page. At the end of this show, we'll tell you how you can also reach us on our Facebook page. Nishit says he wants to understand how to fix HR hiring policies while appointing HR for their company.
Yeah. See, your hiring policy is primarily dependent upon your business strategy and business requirements. So, now packaging industry is a very specialized industry where you not only need those packaging industry knowledge, but at the same time you need a design skill, you need a creative skills, you need to understand how the logistics takes your packages from one place to another. So, we need to create a kind of a job description profile for various roles in the organization and map those to the specific target where you can, sometimes you may get this trained from an academic institute like Indian Institute of Packaging and all. But other times, if you are very specific to your product line, then you need to also provide your training in terms of grooming those people to come to that knowledge of, what industry needs in packaging.
Sure.
So, I completely agree to what he says that, the HR in the packaging industry needs to have more specific skills, which is a mix of an HR as well as technical as well as design.
Okay, so there are specific HR professionals and professionals also, like our experts are suggesting, for the packaging industry. Do look at how you can go about hiring them, or alternative is additional training. Our next query is coming to us from VGS Varghese. Go ahead, Varghese. What's your question for our experts?
I am Shadil Varghese, proprietor Bright Engineering Works, Kerala. We manufacture machineries. Before GST, our tax rate was 5%. After GST, it has become 18% and 28%, which is heavily affecting our profit margin. Some of our input items are at 28%, for example, gearboxes, pulley, etc. It would be very much helpful if the input and output tax rate of MSME in one tax rate, which will be less than 18%. Paying 28% GST is affecting our morale also. Thank you.
So, this seems to be a misconception, correct me if I am wrong, that a lot of people are saying we are paying higher taxes, we are paying under GST. So, what would you have to say to Varghese in terms of either being able to pay out those taxes or maintain his margins?
Okay. So, first of all, one needs to understand that GST is a pass through. Okay. If you look at the effective tax rate versus earlier regime versus GST, the effective tax rate has actually come down. But it appears larger because earlier we were paying it in fragments. So, there was earlier like this excise which was very high, then on top of it excise, basic plus excise had VAT on it, and on top of it we had various cesses. Now, everything is consolidated and then there is this one number. So, the number looks larger, but it is actually not. That is point one. But okay, this is very theory. Practically speaking, I think Varghese has to evaluate the kind of credits that he is getting back from his raw materials. Whenever he is procuring something, as I have said earlier in many episodes, that you need to look at every rupee that you are spending on your suppliers. All your suppliers have to be registered, and you have to make sure that they write your GST number properly on their invoices, so that you will get credit for every rupee that you spend in your business. If you start getting credit for every rupee that you spend in your business, automatically your cost of doing business comes down and margins go up.
Sure.
So, I think a proper impact assessment of GST is what Varghese should do in order to find out what is the real impact of taxation, and I am very confident that at the end of it he will conclude that GST is actually helping him with his margins and not eating into it.
Okay. So, do a proper assessment or hire a GST expert like yourself to be able to look at your books and help you understand, like our experts have always said, whenever we have taken in any question on GST, it's always a pass-through effect. So, do keep that in mind, and thanks very much for calling in with that question, Varghese. Jane Rao has sent us this email. He says his major concern is with bankers. His concern is that they don't share proper information on laws of banks towards MSMEs. His question for our experts is what can be done in such a scenario, whether there are any guidelines for banks to sanction loans to startups and MSMEs, and how he can go about getting those loans. Okay. We do have organizations like SIDBI, for instance. The government is going all out to talk about funding for MSMEs, but clearly the experience that he's had has been different. So, what would you gentlemen say?
See, today there are funds available in all forms, in the debt forms, in equity forms. There are venture funds governed by governments, and there are funds of funds available. So, the process and even the procedures have become easier to get those kind of financing done from the. There are also private loan providers, by the way, which requires very less procedural aspects, and there are platforms. I don't want to name those, but there are many where a company can get loans from those platforms without too much of collaterals and procedures for SME market.
GN Rao, that's in response to your question, and that wraps up today's show. Gentlemen, Sunil, Vishal, thank you both very much for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
Time for a break, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll bring you the story of Cloudrino and Greensole. Do stay tuned for that. You're back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight we're bringing you Cloudrino and Greensole on a Small Giant segment. Managing data effectively in today's world becomes the building block of any successful company, and helping companies scale without burning a hole in their pockets for data storage infrastructure is Jaipur-based Cloudrino. Shubhangi Sinha caught up with the co-founder to bring you MSME's tips on how to use the cloud. Take a look.
Starting a company for the first time can be daunting, and managing associated data in today's interconnected world can give any first-time entrepreneur cold feet. Recognizing the need to provide cloud support and solutions for companies is Jaipur-based Cloudrino. Founded by Tarusha Mittal and Mohit Madan, the company hopes to make infrastructure solutions more accessible and affordable for individuals and companies alike.
Tarusha, talk to us about what the inspiration really was behind starting Cloudrino, and what was the gap that you were trying to bridge?
Cloudrino is a cloud and blockchain management interface company. So we started out as a dedicated server solution company. We evolved to a cloud solution company, and then we created a self-service cloud platform. And now we are we are working on an interface which would make SMEs and MSMEs use cloud in a more effective manner, in a much more friendly manner.
Right, so for the benefit of our viewers then, if you could probably walk us through exactly how you're being able to offer them infrastructure solutions. So perhaps an example of what you can do.
Okay, so anybody who has perhaps a website or a storage solution, when you're using a cloud for storage or a server for storage, they buy a server from any of the server storage companies or cloud companies that provide you with a IP address and a username and a password. So what a person has to do is they have to make that server serviceable for the layman. They have to actually go into the terminal, put in a few commands to make it a little more friendly. What Cloudrino does is we are adding a graphical layer on top of the server. You can buy the server or the infrastructure, as you call it, from any other provider. Our layer is completely agnostic to the infrastructure provider, the OS platform or the hardware, and you can just add it on top. Within 15 seconds the installation is done, and then it sort of simplifies the most complex of tasks. So tasks like database management, FTP, etc., everything can be done with just a click of a button. Something that used to take hours can just happen within 30 seconds.
So basically what I understand from you is that you don't really need to have very advanced technical knowledge to be able to get the best performance out of the platform. So how is it that you think MSMEs and startups can perhaps use this?
So MSMEs and startups, they are usually a little bootstrapped or cash strapped, and they might not have a techie on their team. And Cloudrino, as you said, that is exactly the point of what we are doing. We are just decluttering cloud, we are simplifying it. So when you are giving that power in the hand of the your user, they are actually able to perform tasks that would take a techie certain days or certain weeks. So we are not just we are reducing the resource usage, not just in terms of money but in terms of time as well.
Right, so now talking to you about the infrastructure solutions then. So obviously every company, every individual would have a different need, would have a different kind of an expectation from his infrastructure. So how is it that you're being able to ensure that your services are flexible enough to accommodate all of that?
Okay, so we have a lot of parameters in place. We have our own proprietary algorithm, so it makes sure that your services, the CPU usage or the RAM usage, whatever you are customizing, those parameters are followed. We have redundancies in terms of N+5. So even if the whole entire data center goes down, your services will still remain up and running because we specialize in high availability infrastructure. So that is something that would really help SMEs and startups in keeping their services up and running.
Right, so talking to you about competition at this point in time. Now there are bigger companies who do offer cloud services to companies and individuals. So how do you hold your own against them?
So in terms of indirect competition, I would say that cPanel is an indirect competition that we have, but even cPanel has its limitations in terms of the kind of OS and the kind of resources that it uses on the server. So all of those limitations do not hold true with Cloudrino IO. Regarding the distributed computational resources project that we are working on, that is something that there is only an indirect competitor again would be storage. They are just doing this for storage. We are doing it for the entire array of resources.
Right, so now how important do you think it is for MSMEs to be able to tap into the power of cloud? How significantly do you think that costs can be reduced with it?
Okay, costs can be dramatically reduced by using cloud. So with cloud, I think all MSMEs and startups, they should start with cloud and not with a dedicated server solution, because cloud can be very elastic and it can give you a very robust solution. So you can scale vertically as well as horizontally with the cloud, which is not possible with a dedicated server solution, at least not without a downtime.
With an in-depth understanding of cloud and its allied services, Cloudrino is able to offer to its users a sky full of cloud solutions.
People around the globe are donating hearts, kidneys and other organs, and taking this initiative a step further is Greensole, a startup that's donating walks. Greensole, founded in 2013, is directly tackling India's urban-rural divide by turning refurbished, worn-out sneakers into quirky pieces for needy school children. Karishma Vanjani caught up with the co-founder of the social enterprise to understand how they translated their philanthropic vision into a self-sustainable business model. Take a look.
Lakhs of children walk to school barefoot every day. Thousands of people die due to parasitic infections every year. Tens of thousands of households can't afford a pair of shoes. Now, to tackle all of this, what if I started a shoe company? And every time I sold a pair of shoes, I donated one in return. Doesn't sound like a sustainable business model? Well, clearing this cloud of doubt is Greensole, a self-sustaining social enterprise that distributes recycled shoes to wear for children. Apart from providing footwear to thousands, this venture also saves pounds of carbon emission and in the process generates employment. Well, are you still wondering how Greensole self-sustains this impact model? We spoke to Shreyans Bhandari, co-founder of Greensole, to find out.
Worn-out shoes that can be refurbished and made into a venture. Well, that's an idea unheard of. So what led to the birth of Greensole?
So we didn't start out to start a company or to become an entrepreneur. It was just an idea which came about when Ramesh and I, both athletes. So as runners, we used to throw away old shoes, which used to go in dustbins. So it was a simple thought that how can we save these old shoes from going in dustbins? So we sat down, started tinkering with those shoes, and one day came up with the idea that they could be made into slippers.
So let me break down the process for our viewers here. Greensole takes up shoes from its collection centers, it refurbishes them here at the plant, remanufactures them, and adding to that, there's an additional logistic cost involved. How does the startup manage to generate profits?
So we've got corporate partners, about 35 companies sponsoring about $199 per pair, That involves the recycling cost and the logistics. So we've kept some margins on it so that we can break even. Apart from that, we're also selling recycling as a service. So there are a lot of brands who are also again sponsoring this cost. And we've got a retail range which is sold online, like a pair which I'm wearing. It's made from old shoes which have been recycled, and then people can buy it online through Amazon, Flipkart. So the margins there are about 200-300%. So the shoes which are coming to us from all across India, they reach us free of cost. People send it at their own cost. So we just have the recycling cost, and then we go and donate them further. So what traditional NGOs do is that they just depend on traditional donations from individuals, which is not that scalable. But what we do is that we've got corporate partners, about 35 partners, and Greensole comes under their CSR. So they sponsor about $3 per pair, which covers our recycling and logistics cost to the beneficiaries. But inbound raw material, it's completely free of cost.
So let's talk numbers here. Greensole started its operations in 2015. The very next year, it generated a revenue of 50 lakhs. What has been your year-on-year growth, and what's the cost of refurbishing each shoe?
So we've been growing quite fast, being a startup, and the idea is catching up pretty quickly. So year-on-year growth is about 300% every year, and we're adding about 20 to 30 new partners also. The typical recycling cost is 50% of what we are taking from the corporates, but other than that, we also have overheads and other costs.
So would you say that the corporate CSR support model, the one that you adopted, is the best selection for entrepreneurs looking to build a business around the social idea?
I think CSR is something big which is coming up in India. It's made mandatory by the government also. 2% CSR is mandatory, and as per research, about 18,000 crores were invested over 2 years in the social activities. So this is a big space that can be looked at apart from traditional donations. And if you have something tangible, process where corporates can also get involved, then CSR is a big avenue.
From Barack Obama to Ratan Tata, many known role models have supported your cause. What are some of the other milestones that Greensole is set to achieve for the year 2017?
Things are going on well, like the company has stabilized, it has new partners are coming in, more donation drives are going on. But we want to scale up retail model now. We launched it last year on Amazon and other platforms. So we are looking at raising capital. We already approached investors, and the company is valued at about 150 CR now. So within 3 months, we are looking at closing the round.
Let me quickly wrap up this interview. What is your advice for entrepreneurs trying to build a business around a social idea?
Social venture is something very new to India. It's still coming up, and especially at a young age. I started when I was 19 years old. So they shouldn't be scared even if they have an idea which is innovative. It aligned to social values, so we went for it. And they can think of a model around it. If we have a product, then we are selling it under CSR also and to people as well. So both these things can be very well combined, and people shouldn't be scared of it at a young age also. We've done it, and I think there will be many more to follow.
Helping the needy walk miles, Greensole today has donated footwear to 50,000 children. Gushing a new entrepreneurial wave of social change, this startup is an example of successful business built around profitable philanthropy. So let's take a step towards impacting lives and be a part of the cause. Donate shoes at your nearest collection center.
That's our show tonight. If you have any feedback or you want to be featured here on the show, you have any question for our experts, you can always write in at leadersoftomorrowtimesgroup.com. On social media, tweet at me at Sunanda_J or at LOT_ET now, or reach us on our Facebook page, Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now. You can also call us on that number you see on your screen. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good night.